Hi, my name is John Lingle. I'm Texas Ranger stationed in Victoria, Texas, and I'm currently assigned to the Public Integrity Unit. Well, I wanted to become a Texas Ranger. My dad had been in law enforcement back in the 70s. He was a chief deputy in a little county called Clay County. And he was actually really good friends with Bill Girth, who was the ranger in Wichita Falls. And growing up, I went to school with one of Bill's grandchildren. And I hear a lot of stories from Bill of all the fun ranger things that he was doing, the car chases and shootouts and all that stuff, and which, of course, like I tell everybody, he never told me I was going to have to write any reports. So I looked at that, and it sounded good, so I always had an interest in it. I was always interested in law enforcement and the Rangers particularly. I didn't know as much about the Rangers' old history as some guys might. My experience with them was through guys like Bill Girth and Dick Johnson there in Wichita Falls, so I knew what the more modern day Rangers were doing. And then growing up, I read some books about Frank Hamer, Lone Wolf Gonzalez, some of those guys. So I had a little bit more of an understanding of the current Ranger, the one riot, one Ranger type of work that they were doing. And so that's mainly what I looked at with the Rangers. I think the biggest change for me was realizing how much report writing there was, which was the same as with DPS. You know, they sell you on all the fun stuff, and then you get there and you got to write reports. So there was a lot more report writing to it. And I think even though they tell you how much time it's going to take to do an investigation and do it properly, like you really just don't understand until you're doing it how truly entrenched in it you are and how much time it's going to take. I think it has in a good way. My chief at the time I promoted back in 2017, Randy Prince, used to say that we were standing on the shoulders of giants, talking about the history that had preceded us and the goodwill that we were living off of based on those older Rangers. And I've always tried to take that to heart, that those guys that came before us that have done all that work, you know, we really are living off of that. So have tried to maintain that. So I think that's why we try to do such a good job. Man, my daily experience as a Ranger varies quite a bit, just depending on the type of casework that I've got going. Covering 3 counties and having multiple different types of cases, it can just vary. But when I'm working a murder, you know, it's a 16-hour day probably. You know, once you're at a point where you're not working a murder or testifying in court, you've got a little bit more of a laid-back day where you're trying to get caught up on case reports and everything like that. So I don't think there is, at least for the field Rangers that are out there, I don't think we have a true set day. It's always different. I think the one that probably sat with me the most is I worked a murder in Jackson County of a little 4-year-old boy who had been just brutally beaten by his mother and a stepfather. And I remember getting called into that one and responding to Houston, to the children's hospital there to work that case. And, you know, they have an entire wing at that children's hospital for child abuse cases. And the doctor, Dr. Donnarumma that was there, mentioned that it was the worst case that she'd ever seen. And to hear that from somebody in Harris County that saw that every day, it really sat with me. And myself and the chief of police in Ganado, Dave Merritt, we worked really hard on that case. And I took a lot of satisfaction in that one that we got life sentences for both of those people. So I do have some specialized training as a Ranger. We receive a lot of additional training on top of what TCOL requires from us just with the Rangers. We have advanced crime scene schools that we attend, put on through the Rangers, photography classes, things of that nature. I've also pursued some additional training. I'm a force science analyst through their certification process. And so I've really taken it upon myself to try to have a vast skill set just because of the type of cases that we work. I think the ranger that inspired me the most growing up, it goes back to my first answer, was Bill Girth. As a kid, hearing those stories and seeing him, that was the only ranger I knew. So to me, that's how a ranger acted. That's what a ranger did. That's what you were supposed to be as a ranger. So Bill definitely had a big input on me. Being a force science analyst is a training certification. It's a week-long class that we take. Dr. Bill Lewinsky is a true pioneer in the field, where he has done scientifically repeatable studies to show how humans react to shooting incidents or physical contact. He does a lot of looking at like the OODA loop, where you observe, orient, decide, and act, and where he's able to scientifically put times to that of how quickly someone can react if they see a stimulus, how quickly they can shoot, how quickly they can stop shooting, and then also some of the things of how our mind works and how eyewitnesses perceive an event and the effects it can have on our recall of that event. I think now that I've came into the public integrity unit, it's probably going to be a little bit more of a help. The public administration class gave me a window into city, county government, and how that works, the processes that they have to go through to be able to get something done. And it's good to know a little bit more of the minutia of that, because when some of these cases pop up, there can be some terms or some things that now I'm a little more aware of than I was previously, so I know what to look into on those.